The banner will be on the screen, so please join in singing. And then Frank's brother, Ted Riesinger, will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Join me in prayer, please. Father God, tonight at this JV service, we want to recognize you for your continuous provision and watch care over us. To say thank you for the numerous times you've seen us through great conflicts during our country's history. We mark VJ Day in gratitude for the courage of the Allied forces who suffered for freedom in the Far East campaign. But also, Father, we also want to say thank you and recognize one of your humble servants, Frank Riesinger. It was Frank's hard work and perseverance that saw to it that we had a service to recognize the men and women who fought during this time. So, Father, would you be here with us? Would you be pleased in all that is done? And would you be pleased in how we recognize your servant, Frank? In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
One more time for the Broken Arrow Air Force Junior ROTC. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Appreciate you. If you would, please direct your attention to the screen for a very special message from one of our greatest warrior leaders.
Hey, Broken Arrow. General Drew Pappas here, and we're sending you our warmest Army regards from the Forces Command Headquarters right here at the home of the Airborne, Fort Liberty, North Carolina. Thanks for being a great city for our service members and vets. And thanks for honoring the end of what was, and we always hope will be, this planet's largest and its most costly war. But most of all, thanks for carrying forward the legacy and the stories of all who have served. Now, Fred Riesinger, he did his patriotic duty when he began this Broken Arrow tradition. And I know he said the last years were going to be the last, but I doubt he minds watching from up above as you come together once again. Now, World War II ended 79 years ago. In many ways, that's a foreign time for most Americans today. Now, this tradition of yours matters because you're sustaining a bittersweet yet vital memory. So thank you. Thank you for honoring the courage and sacrifices of those who have served. I wish you all the very best, and God bless America.
Since this is VJ Day ceremony, we want to make sure and honor our VIPs. And so we are going to have the service songs of each branch of the military played by the 145th Army Band. Service members and veterans, when your service song is played, please stand and be recognized by our audience. Once your service song ends, you may be seated. Thank you all for your service, and thank you guys for adding the Space Force in there. That's a new one, and we don't hear it very often. It's good to hear it in there. Thank you. We'd like to recognize our VIPs in the audience tonight. First of all, this evening would not be possible without the cooperation and hard work of the Broken Arrow School District, Kim Vento and her staff. They are going above and beyond to make this happen, and especially with school starting this week, and we need to give them a huge round of applause. Next person that we need to recognize, because this event wouldn't happen here also, is Michelle Cash. She is the owner of See It All Leak Detector and Plumbing Incorporated. She's going to shoot me, but she was also at one time the number 6 female bull rider in the world. So yeah, she's a pretty special gal. She's been a supporter of Frank's and his program for years, and she's the one that provided the funding to help us get into the Performing Arts Center. So, Michelle, thank you. We have a special group tonight. We have some family of Frank Riesinger. We have his brother, who you met doing the Pledge of Allegiance, Mr. Ted Riesinger. We have Frank's daughter, Ann Riesinger Beam, and her husband, Cliff. And a great-grandson, Ethan Shawnee, is also here. And we have the Vice Mayor, Miss Christy Gillespie. We're gathered here for a very honorable and patriotic purpose. We're here, and please forgive me, I have the wrong date on it. It should be 1945, that was me. I'm gonna throw myself under the bus. We're gathered here for a very honorable and patriotic purpose. We're here to celebrate an ideal that finished with mission accomplished. We're here to celebrate the soldiers, sailors, and airmen that achieved the total victory in the Pacific, ending the global conflict being fought against great evil, along with those everyday men and women that made that victory possible. Victory over Japan Day is and will always be a day of reflection, honor, and patriotism. Yet there's another reason we gather here this evening in this beautiful auditorium. We're here to remember the man that made this celebration here in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, possible. A man that saw this day as a day that would impact the rest of his life. A man that was so thankful for this day that it would be his own personal celebration for many years before an actual public ceremony. A man that was a true patriot that loved his community and most definitely loved his country. This man is none other than Frank Riesinger. Frank enlisted into the Army Air Corps a week after D-Day, 1944. A couple months before his 18th birthday, and he was trained to be a navigator on the B-29 Super Fortress. While traveling to his next base, he was granted a delay en route during his transfer from Yuma Army Airfield. The train would pass through Tulsa, and here he was granted a couple days to go home and see his family. On a stop in El Paso, people got on board the train and said that the United States had dropped the bomb. Frank found out when he got off the train in Tulsa that it was the top secret atomic bomb that had been dropped on Hiroshima, and then a few days later, the second one dropped on Nagasaki, Japan. On August 14th, as he prepared to leave for his next assignment, he was visiting his father's jewelry store in downtown Tulsa. He heard a lot of noise, people shouting, horns honking through the open window. He looked out and saw trash paper and ticker tape falling from the surrounding buildings. Someone came rushing into the store and said, "The Japs have surrendered, the war is over." So Frank, and at that time his 4-year-old brother, Teddy, went out into the street and celebrated VJ Day with everyone in Tulsa. That's the picture right there. 70 years after the war ended, Frank was sure there was going to be a big celebration to commemorate VJ Day. There had been great celebrations and commemorations for VE Day, the Victory of Europe Day, in the spring, but he didn't see any mention of the end of the war and VJ Day. He waited and looked for any information about what he felt surely had to be celebrated, especially in downtown Tulsa. He found there was no celebration scheduled. Frank said he told everyone that would listen, and he complained about it to anyone and everyone that would listen, They told him, "Why don't you have a celebration?" Well, having recently moved to Broken Arrow, he got with the former superintendent of schools, and they put on a VJ Day ceremony in Veterans Park, downtown Broken Arrow, on August 14th, 2015. And he carried on that tradition until his passing last spring in April. And how appropriate that the first one he put together was with the former superintendent, and here we are in the building of the Broken Arrow School District. Liberty Jump Team took Frank to Belgium for the Battle of the Bulge celebrations, to Normandy for the D-Day celebrations, and to Holland for the celebrations in Market Garden. I first met Frank in December of 2019. I was to meet him at the Dallas airport, and we were going to travel together and meet up with the rest of our Liberty Jump Team group, heading to the 75th anniversary of the Battle of the Bulge. I had him on the phone as I was on my way to his gate, and I told him that I would meet him right outside his gate. Well, when I arrived, no Frank. I'm looking around. I turn to look back down the hallway, and I see a little old guy coming in uniform coming out of the restroom. I knew that had to be him. I walked up and said, "Frank?" He said, "Dale." I said, "Yes." His response, "How did you know it was me?" Well, we got to Bastogne, and what a time we had. World War II veterans Frank, George Mers, John Pilner, and Bob Izumi had a special, special time. There weren't many World War II veterans in Belgium that year, and Liberty Jump Team had the majority of them. We all attended a nighttime ceremony at the American Cemetery in Luxembourg, where General Patton is buried. We walked into the 75th anniversary celebration where they had placed tea light candles at every grave. It was beautiful. We were in a large tent, and we were getting ready to be seated for the start of the ceremony, and I look around, no Frank. Frank, being very highly mobile, I lost him. I looked around and I just had a gut feeling. I had heard the Army quintet in the far corner of the tent playing music. I walked over. Sure enough, the consummate musician had gone up to talk to his people. Frank had talked the major into giving up his baton after the program so he could lead the band in Stars and Stripes Forever, Frank's favorite Sousa march. And of course, before they played it, he introduced the entire Sousa march and gave its history, and everyone loved it. It was great, and the crowd applauded. Frank, as many of you know, on that trip, met the King and Queen of Belgium at the official celebration. We walked into the secure area and were immediately greeted by the King and Queen. None of us made it past the entrance area as the King and Queen sat down with our guys. Frank and the Queen had a great conversation that lasted the entire cocktail hour. The Queen's lady-in-waiting came and got her because lunch was being served. The King and Queen would rather spend their time with liberators than the heads of state or any brass inside talking over cocktails. Yes, Frank asked her where her crown was. She said it was very heavy and she preferred the big floppy hat she wore for the ceremony. Yes, she said she came just to see Frank. No, he did not ask her to sit on his lap, and if she would be willing to leave the king for him. That was the jokester Frank having fun with his friends when he got back. He called me after he had typed out the letter from the Queen that he had written to embellish his tall tale. We laughed about that forever. We were in Holland at the Market Garden celebrations, and we had been taken to a village that was going to have a ceremony for the 101st Airborne at their specific monument. We unloaded all the veterans and got into the front row seats, and then I heard it. I could hear it in the distance. I heard the sound of drum beats. I walked out to the road behind me, and there they were. The 101st Airborne Marching Band was coming up the road. I just got a good place to stand and was going to watch the show, because I knew what was going to happen next. I watched Frank as he perked up when he heard the drums. I watched as Frank stood to watch the band march in and get into their place for their performance. I watched Frank walk up to the conductor and talk to him. I watched as the major handed Frank his baton. I watched as the major introduced Frank to the band, and then I watched Frank lead the 101st Airborne Marching Band in a rousing version of Stars and Stripes Forever, followed by an incredible ovation for him and the band. I was prepared that time. It was awesome. Now, Frank did not serve overseas. He always made sure the people of Europe knew that, because of course they loved him anyway. He was still their liberator. So Frank was in training here in the States like thousands of others when the war ended. Frank always told Peter Plank and myself, "You guys find someone more deserving. I wasn't even there. There has to be someone more deserving that can go. If you absolutely cannot find someone else, I'll think about it." Well, a couple years ago, I drove in for one of his VJ Day ceremonies, 10 hours from southern New Mexico, sat at his house in his I Love Frank room for 2 hours, convincing him that he needed to go with me to Holland. He was always wanting those that, in his words, actually served to go. I told him, "Frank, there is no one else." And then that night at the VJ Day ceremony, I told the crowd that he was going to Holland and that he would once again proudly and honorably represent the thousands of Americans that were training to fight the Axis powers, but did not get to fight because of the end of the war. The public notification finally did it, and we had a great time. Frank was always wanting more information. He was a lifelong learner and was always asking questions everywhere he went. Sometimes I had to rein him in a little because we were on a schedule and about to get left behind. But he never met a stranger, and he always gave that person he was talking to 100% focus and attention. I miss the phone calls. I know I'm not the only one that got him. Dale, Frank, can you talk? Anything going on? Then at the end of the conversation, "Well, if you need anything, give me a call." Those calls were always precious to me, and I miss them. He was always thanking Peter and I for everything we did for him. What he didn't understand was all that he had done for us, and we were just trying to thank him. Frank was a good man, he was a humble man, and he was such a patriot. This VJ Day ceremony is going to do what Frank always wanted, and he always did. He wanted to remember those that fought for the freedom and liberty of the greatest nation in the world, even though he didn't get a chance to fight. We will do that tonight. But first, Frank, tonight's ceremony is dedicated to you, my dear friend. Maggie Bond, accompanied by Vietnam veteran, and by the way, Vietnam veterans, welcome home. Vietnam veteran Dennis Hope on the guitar will now sing a couple of our World War II classics. Please give it up for Maggie and Dennis.
sang on. Was it the spell of Paris, or an April dawn? Who knows if we shall meet again? But when the morning chime rings sweet again. I'll be seeing you in all the old familiar places that this heart of mine embraces all the way through. And that small cafe, the park across the way, the children's carousel, the chestnut trees, the ocean. I'll be seeing in every lovely summer's day, in everything that's bright and gay. I'll always think of you that way. I'll find you in the morning sun, and when the night is I'll be looking at the moon, but I'll be seeing you.
One more time for Maggie and Dennis. That was amazing. The Honorable Mayor Deborah Wimpy unfortunately is unable to join us tonight. But fear not. Please welcome the Honorable Vice Mayor of the great city of Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, Christy Gillespie.
Thank you. I wanted to have Johnny Parks, Counselor Johnny Parks, who is here tonight with me, come up because he is a proud veteran, and we're a city that honors our veterans, but this man right here is one of the best. And Maggie, oh my goodness, that was so beautiful. And you know, when I think of Frank, I just have to say this, it came to me. He displayed pure joy in his life. And joy is such a God-given thing. And I think if we go through our life and just make a choice to share joy with other people, that is such a special gift to give. And I hope that we all can learn that lesson from him. Because I imagine like at all these events he would be dancing around, but he gets to dance around every day now on the streets of gold. And what a great thing. So Deborah, our mayor, could not be here tonight because she is out of town, but I am going to read the proclamation and then she's going to present it personally when she gets back in town. So I can read it now that I'm crying. Okay, I'm going to get through the whereases here. Whereas VJ Day, otherwise known as Victory over Japan Day and Victory in the Pacific Day, is a day that commemorates Japan's surrender during World War II, thereby bringing an end to the war. And on August 6, 1945, the United States dropped the atomic bomb, Little Boy, on Hiroshima, Japan, and on August 9th, dropped the atomic bomb, Fat Man, on Nagasaki, Japan. Acts that resulted in the Japanese formally surrendering to the Allies on August 15, 1945, a day ending World War II, and followed when that condition was made official on September 2nd, 1945, with the signing of the Japanese Instrument of Surrender aboard the battleship USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay. And whereas in the announcement of final victory for the armed forces of the United States and its allied nations defending the cause of liberty, justice, and freedom, the most terrible and devastating war known to man in history came to an end. And whereas celebration of this anniversary of the historic VJ Day gives us the opportunity to reflect on the past and renew our patriotism so that we may continue to live in freedom and seek peace, so that our veterans will not have died in vain. Frank Riesinger, has dedicated a substantial amount of time, energy, and assets to ensure that this day has been celebrated for the past 9 years. Now, therefore, I, Christy Gillespie, representing our Mayor, Deborah Wimpy, do, with the approval by the City Council of Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, hereby proclaim Saturday, August 10th, 2024, as the 79th anniversary celebration of VJ Day in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, and I further declare this day to honor the contributions of Frank Riesinger.
I'd like to make a couple of comments. They shouldn't bring me up here and expect me not to say something. But as a veteran, I'll tell you, I honor veterans. My dad served and my father-in-law served in the South Pacific for 3 years. I lost an uncle at 17 years old in Saipan. So this is really important to me, veterans are. But let me tell you about your city councilor. Christy here, and the mayor, and our other two councilors, there's 5 of us, Lisa and Justin Green, Lisa Ford, are some of the nearly need to be veterans because they love our country so much. But what I want to tell you is that they know what it costs to have our free country. Every time anything happens, veterans need anything, it's a priority for all 5 of our city councilmen. So I'm so proud to serve as a councilman in a city that is so dedicated to our veterans and appreciate it very much. But the mayor and vice mayor, they're right there on top and always willing to help. Okay? Thank you all.
Mr. Parks, I apologize, not being a Broken Arrow native. I didn't realize we had other commissioners in the building, so I apologize, sir. Thank you for being here. I would like to now welcome a dear friend of mine. He's a leader of men. He served in the Oklahoma State Guard, retiring as a lieutenant colonel. He is a founding member of Liberty Jump Team. He is the Veterans Affairs Officer. He has been awarded the highest honor of France, which goes back to Napoleon, the French Legion of Honor. This last June, he was also inducted into the Order of St. Maurice. This is a high honor recognizing the significant contributions made by infantrymen, infantry supporters, and spouses. He and his wife Linda have been escorting World War II veterans back to the battlefields of Europe every year since Liberty Jump Team was formed in 2006. Peter, his father, grandfather, and 5 of his uncles all served in the military dating back to World War I. He served on the board of directors of the Oklahoma Military History Center here in Broken Arrow for many years until being re-elected onto the City Commission for Bethany, Oklahoma. Please give a warm round of applause and a big Broken Arrow welcome to Lieutenant Colonel Peter Plank.
Thank you, Dale. Thank you, everyone that's attended this evening, this special occasion, especially honoring Frank. I'm going to talk about just briefly our trips to Europe. Well, you kind of think about, well, this is VJ Day celebration. Well, victory in Japan was ours, but there's not any celebrations over in Japan for this type of event. So the veterans that we've taken over the years, over many years, have been to the villages they liberated, the battlefields they fought in Europe. And I agree with Dale. Frank was undeserving, if you ask him, but we took him and he represented those here in the United States that were trained and ready to go fight the Japanese if World War II continued. We founded the team many years ago, and our mission was not only to do parachute jumps here in the United States, but we wanted to do parachute jumps in Europe on the same drop zones that they dropped in 1944. And let me get my little clicker. We jumped out of C-47 aircraft, the old warbirds. There's several of those C-47s here in the United States. And we jump Dragamut in Europe, that's stationed in England. Part of our mission, not only to do parachute jumps, but to take these greatest generation heroes back to Europe. Not only do we do a program in Normandy in June, in Holland in September, but we take them back to the cold Battle of the Bulge commemorations in Belgium each December. My interest in World War II started as a young boy. I had 5 uncles in World War II. My Uncle James was a medic on D-Day. He went all through the war. Came back, he was an astute student in high school, joined the Army, went into the medic program. But when Uncle James got home from the war, he was shell-shocked, had severe, back then, shell-shock, today's PTSD. He stuttered after the war, and my Uncle James became a dairy farmer instead of going back to medical school. And he told me as a little boy that he got along better with his dairy cows than he did people because of his severe stuttering from the war. My Uncle Charles was in Patton's Third Army. He was a Jeep driver. My Uncle Bill was a parachute rigger with the bomber group in Europe. My Uncle Bobby was in the Navy in the Pacific. And then upper right is my Uncle Nobu Matsuda. I have a really resemblance to him, you notice. My Uncle Nobu Matsuda was 16 years old when Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, living in Hawaii. Him and his family were uprooted, sent to an internment camp in Oregon, and 2 years later, in 1943, he joined the Army to show his loyalty to the United States of America. He was assigned to the 442nd Regimental Combat Team. Back in the war, there was severe prejudice with the Japanese Americans. They were assigned to a separate unit, and to this day, the 442nd Regimental Combat Team is the most decorated military regiment in military history. They wanted to show their loyalty to the United States so much. They fought harder and fought the enemy so much. Most decorated regiment. By the way, let's go back real quick. Uncle Nobu, after the war, stayed in the Army, and he met this tall Texan named Nell, my Aunt Nell. And a few years later, my Aunt Nell and my Uncle Nobu married. We were proud for them. But every Christmas and every Thanksgiving, when my mother would call her 4 brothers, "Are you coming to Thanksgiving dinner? Are you coming to Christmas dinner?" The first thing they would ask is that Jap that my sis married coming? And my mother would say, "Yes, he is." Well, if that Jap's coming, we won't be there. So for many years, as a little boy, I had Thanksgiving and Christmas celebrations with my family with no uncles. But one by one, my Uncle Nobu wound up making a career, retiring as a full bird colonel. And one by one, my uncles came around. Uncle Bill finally showed up. Uncle Charles finally showed up. Uncle James finally showed up. But Uncle Bobby never, because he was in the Navy, and said that he never could get his head around the fact that Sis married a Japanese. But my other 3 uncles and their wives welcomed my Uncle Nobu and the family. All 4 uncles have passed, but Uncle Nobu is still with us. I'll see him in Massachusetts in a few weeks to celebrate his 99th birthday. I want to share quickly, I want to highlight some veterans that we've taken, some greatest generation veterans we've taken back to Europe. I want to introduce you to Ralph Manley. Ralph Manley was with the 501st Parachute Infantry Regiment, paratrooper. And we jumped in Springfield, Missouri at a veterans event. And when we got off the drop zone in the VIP area, we intermingled with the World War II veterans. We found out that Ralph was jumped into Normandy, never been back since the war. And we told Ralph, we said, "Ralph, we go to Normandy every year. We raise money for the airfare for the veterans to go with us. We have host families that open up their homes, so there's no hotel expenses." And we looked at our jump schedule, and we happened to be jumping. One of our jumps was the 501st Regimental Combat Team drop zone. I said, "Ralph, we're jumping your drop zone next June. Why don't you go with us? I'll get you in the aircraft, and you can ride in the aircraft when we jump your drop zone. I'll get you on the manifest. You can get back in an old C-47 and watch us jump." Ralph was all in. He'd never been back, so we had to get him a passport. A couple weeks later, his family called, his daughter Janelle, and said, "Peter, who's this Liberty Jump Team Peter Plank free trip for our dad? We need to get some information." So I had to go to Springfield. I had an interview with the family and explained to them there's no catch. So we got him a passport, got him his airplane tickets, host family, and about the 1st of May, his daughter Janelle called and said, "Peter, we have some real concerns about our father going with you to Normandy." And I said, "Well, Janelle, I've met with your family, everything's in place. I don't know what else we can do." She said, "Well, we don't mind him going, but we don't think he needs to be jumping out of an airplane at 85 years old." And I said, "Well, Janelle, he's not." She said, he's not? No. Well, he thinks he is. Really? Yeah. Peter, he's jumping off the picnic table in his backyard, rolling in the grass. And the neighbor lady's calling me every other day, Janelle, your dad's rolling in the grass off that picnic table. And I said, well, it sounds like he's practicing parachute landing falls. Well, I don't know what he's doing, but he shouldn't be doing it. What did you tell him? I said, well, Janelle, I told him that you could ride in the C-47 when we jump your drop zone. She said, well, he thinks he's jumping. And I said, no, Janelle, you need to tell him he's not. She said, no, you got him into this. You call him and tell him he's not. So I called Ralph and had some small talk. And I said, Ralph, I don't know where the misunderstanding took place, but I told you that you could ride in the C-47 aircraft when we jumped your drop zone. And he said, there's no misunderstanding. You told me that you would get me on that manifest. Well, I forgot. I did use the word manifest. Well, back then, a manifest was a jump manifest. Well, today, it's more of a weights and balance sheet for an aircraft. He said, I'm in the best shape I've been in years. I've been practicing my PLFs in my backyard. I'm ready to jump. And I said, Ralph, there's more to just practicing PLFs in your backyard. When's the last time you jumped? Well, what does that have to do with it? I said, it's got a lot to do with it, Ralph. And so we bantered back and forth. And I said, Ralph, you're not jumping. You could ride in the aircraft. Well, then he says, who's your boss? I said, Ralph, I don't have a boss. I'm one of the founders of the team. No, somebody on that team is over you. And I said, well, that's Sergeant Bobby Contrada. He's the jump master. And you'll meet him when we get to Normandy. But you're not jumping out of an airplane. And I promised Janelle, your dad's not jumping. Well, we get him to Normandy, and the first full day we're there, there's a reception for all of us. And we get the veterans out of the vans, and Ralph said, where's Sergeant Bobby Contrada? I need to talk to that man. Well, I had called Bobby and told him I had a pissed off World War II paratrooper in my hands. Unbeknownst to me, Bobby called Mel. Mel brought his tandem rig. And 69 years to the day that Ralph jumped in Normandy, he jumped into his drop zone in Normandy, France. Well, that's how all the French people on the drop zone reacted. But all I can think of is, I promised Janelle, you're not jumping. So I bought about a dozen of those newspapers, and the night before we were coming back, I helped Ralph pack his suitcase. I set those on top. And I said, Ralph, when you get home, hand these out to your girls and your family. Beg my forgiveness. And so Ralph called me a couple days later, and Janelle called, and they were so excited with Ralph jumping again in Normandy. About 15 years ago, we jumped right here in Jinx, Oklahoma Airport for a World War II veterans group. And we met Harry Hoots. Harry Hoots is from Chandler, Oklahoma. And he was a paratrooper, jumped into Normandy. 2 days into battle, a German grenade was thrown into his foxhole. And as he grabbed it to throw it out, it blew up in his hands. And Harry was severely wounded. His hands were severely mangled. His squad found a little barn near the village of Quotaw, and they hid Harry into the barn. And the battle protocol, you don't let one injured soldier keep you from your mission. So they got him comfortable and said, Harry, Boots, we're coming back for you. And this little French girl and her 2 young brothers came to the barn to feed the chickens and gather the eggs. And they discovered Hoots. All they knew was his name tag. And for 3 days, they came out twice a day. They brought food. They brought soapy water, stripped linens, doctored his wounds the best they could. And the mom and dad didn't want to have anything to do with Hoots. They feared reprisal from the Germans. And on the 4th morning, he woke up and he heard English being yelled outside. He looked out, and the village had been The Germans had vacated overnight. The village had been liberated. And so they got him back to England, and he was so severely mangled that they gave him two options. One was to amputate his fingers at the digits they could save, or cut his hands off. And back then, the only prosthetics they had was the hooks. And Hoots decided that he'd rather have nubs on his hands than hooks. So he comes back to Chandler, Oklahoma, became a horse rancher, and so we met Hoots here in Jinx, Oklahoma, at the air show, and told him we take veterans back to Europe, and how about you go with us next year to Normandy? He said, well, how about we maybe go to that village in Quitow and find that barn that I was hid out in. So the next June, we went to Normandy. He traveled with us. We were scheduled to be at the village of Quitow on a Sunday afternoon. The day before, we met a general that met Harry and found out about his story. He said, Colonel, could I join you tomorrow? I said, yeah, I'll be there at 2 o'clock at the little square. So at 2 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon, we went to the village of Quitow and parked in the little square, walked right to the corner at the church, and sitting in a folding chair with an umbrella strapped to her chair, shielding her from the sun, was a little old French lady, and she was holding a cardboard sign. And printed on that cardboard sign was the name Hoots. And as we walked up, that lady saw us. She saw Hoots. She looked down and she saw his nubs. And she jumped out of that chair screaming and wailing and crying, running up to Hoots. The little old French lady was the girl from the war. And ever since the 50th anniversary of D-Day, that 10-day commemoration of time from June 1st to June 1st to June 10th, she sat on that street corner, holding that sign, hoping that this would be the year that Hoots returns to our village. This would be the year that this special paratrooper that me and my brothers cared for would come back. And it was such an emotional reunion. We went to, she didn't have her two brothers with her. She called her two brothers, and they came. We went back to her house, which her parents had passed, but she lived at the house now. She pulled out some black and white photos of the barn. The barn did not survive the war, but she pulled out some black and white photos. And in that moment, the two-star general comes up to me and he said, Colonel, this is unbelievable what you all have put together. And I had an opportunity to tell him, General, I didn't orchestrate this. Our team didn't orchestrate this. It took us jumping in Jinx Airport. It took Harry Hoots' family having him at that jump event. It took a little old lady dedicated from 1994 on, dedicated to sit on that street corner for 10 days, hoping that this would be the year that Hoots returns to our village. Colonel Bob Powell, many of you know Colonel Powell. Colonel Powell was the founder of the Military History Center, and I had the honor and pleasure to serve with Bob before we ever were here in Broken Arrow. Bob was a glider pilot with the 327th Glider Infantry Regiment. Told me he had the best job in the Army in June of 1944. He was in England flying a single-engine aircraft, flying general officers all over to meetings in England. And one day, he reported for duty, And he was told, "You've been reassigned." And Bob said, "Okay, where am I going?" "You're going to glider training." Bob said, "Whoa, no. I don't fly anything that doesn't have an engine." "Well, you're going to glider training." So in July and August, Bob learned how to fly gliders. And in Operation Market Garden in September, Bob was in a glider towed behind a C-47 and was released into Holland. And as the tow strap released and he started making his rounds to the landing zone, he said it didn't look good. All he saw was telephone poles sticking out of the ground. The Germans all over Holland had placed telephone poles all into the farm fields in preparation for a glider invasion. Bob was he was flying a glider with a howitzer and a 4-man howitzer crew. He crashed that glider into the landing zone, woke up 6 weeks later out of an induced coma. Came back, wound up making a career in the Air Force. And I said, "Bob, we go to Holland every year for Market Garden. How about you go with us? And we will get some Dutch historians to research your glider regiment landing zone. And we'll even get you up in a C-47 aircraft so you can see what it was like on the plane that was towing you." So we got him back to Holland, got him up in that C-47 aircraft, and he was a rock star with the Dutch people. Flying back, I was sitting next to Bob, and he said, "Peter, upon my demise, I want you to promise me something." I said, "Bob, to the best of my ability, I'll do my best." He said, "Upon my demise, I want your team to jump my ashes onto the landing zone that I crashed in September '44. I said, I'll make sure that happens." So a few years later, Bob passed. We took his ashes over to Holland. I handed those over to the jump master. And on the day that we had that parachute jump scheduled, the weather was bad. We had to scrub our jumps. But we wound up having a small ceremony on his landing zone, fulfilling the wishes of Colonel Bob Powell as founder of the Military History Center. And many of you, most of you in this room, know Bill Parker. Bill Parker was with the 116th Infantry Regiment, 29th Infantry Division. We met Bill here in Tulsa. Found out he'd never been back to Normandy. So Dale and I had the opportunity to not only escort Bill to Normandy, but also to Belgium, back to the battlefields and Battle of Bulge. Bill was a cowboy. He was a Choctaw warrior. And most of all, he was the first man onto Dog Green sector of Omaha Beach on June 6, 1944. And I'm proud that Dale and I were able to have the opportunity to get Bill back to Omaha Beach, standing on those sands that so many men died on. And those of you that know Bill, and those of you that have seen his interviews when he got back, it was comforting for us to know that when he got back, When we got him there, he saw families playing in the sand. He saw children playing in the water. And upon returning from Tulsa, Bill said, my nightmares ended. For once, when he saw Omaha Beach with dead soldiers and bloody water, he now saw families and children playing. And with that comfort, it solidified our mission in taking these heroes back to Normandy. We also found Captain Medill, his captain, who was killed on D-Day when they stormed the beach. And I was able to say a prayer standing next to Bill in front of Captain Medill's final resting place, and having closure for Bill in that moment of time. And then, coming back, we submitted and was able to get the approval of the award of the French Legion of Honor to Bill, and the French consulate out of Houston came up, and it was a proud moment for all of us that attended the grounds of the Military History Center to see Bill awarded the highest honor awarded by the French government. Our time's running out with these heroes. Age is catching up with them, mobility is catching up with them, but we're going to continue doing what we're doing until they're no longer physically able to make these trips to Europe. This fall, we have our fall jump school, and we'll have these veterans with us. In November, we'll have our 5th annual World War II Heroes Over Texas event, where we will get them up into the aircraft and fly them all over Dallas-Fort Worth. And then in December, we're taking 3 World War II veterans back to the Battle of the Bulge commemorations in Belgium. The most memorable parts of our trip is when each one of them has a comrade that died in battle, or they know, and going to the flower shop and then taking them to the grave sites of their fallen comrades. That brings closure, and it's really heartwarming for all of us. I want to wrap up this evening with a special thought. In the Pacific Theater of Operations, the United States lost over 111,000 killed in that Pacific. Of that 111,000, 73,000 are missing in action or lost at sea. Eileen Mahoney penned a beautiful poem of remembrance of those lost at sea in the war in the Pacific. It's entitled, In Waters Deep. In ocean waters, no poppies blow. No crosses stand in ordered row. Young hearts sleep beneath the waves. The young, the spirited, the good, the brave. But stars a constant vigil keep for those who lie beneath the deep. 'Tis true you cannot kneel in prayer on a certain spot and think he's there. But you can to the ocean go, see whitecaps marching row by row. One wave for him will always ride, in and out with every tide. And when your span of life is past, he will meet you at the captain's mast. And they who mourn on distant shore, for sailors who come home no more, can dry their tears and pray for these who rest beneath the heaving seas. For stars that shine and winds that blow, and white caps marching row by row. And they will never lonely be, for when they lived, they chose the sea.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you for allowing me to join the mission with you. No VJ Day ceremony of Frank Riesinger would be complete without the playing of his favorite Sousa march. Please welcome once again Maggie Bond and the 145th Army Band. 45th. That was awesome. I want to thank you for your attendance tonight. I want to thank the Broken Arrow Public Schools for their patience and cooperation to make this all happen. Kim, we could not have done it without you and your staff. Thank you so much. Thank you to the Broken Arrow High School Air Force Junior ROTC. Thank you for the, give it up. Yeah. Thank you for the 145th Army Band. Thank you to Michelle Cash and See It All Plumbing. Thank you to the DAR for handing out programs and flags. Thank you for being here tonight. We appreciate you. Madam Vice Mayor, Councilman, thank you for being here also tonight. Thank you to the patriotic city of Broken Arrow for once again hosting one of the only VJ Day ceremonies in the country. Thank you to all those who have served, those who are serving now, and those that will serve. If you could please continue to stand for the benediction, once again led by Earl Haskins. A short video, and then please remain standing for all of them, including the rendering of taps.
Again, join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for your presence here tonight. We ask that you give us hearts of compassion for all that have suffered pain and loss due to the efforts of war. May we learn from these conflicts and strive for peace among all mankind. We recognize that true peace and unity only comes from your Son, Jesus Christ. May he continue his work of reconciliation throughout the world. And Father, again, we say thank you for the service of Frank. May his memory, his hard work, and his love for you and mankind continue as a beautiful legacy of his life. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
We have to continue to remember our past and continue to be the greatest country that God has ever allowed us to create and so far has allowed us to continue. I'm proud of our nation. Damn proud.
We are proud to be here one more time. Damn proud, as Frank put it. May God be with you as you make your journey home. May God bless America. Thank you.